Russia has long made it clear that they have no intention of stopping at Ukraine.
Let me remind you that Ukraine is just an intermediate stage, a transitional point in a broader process in ensuring the long-term strategic security and stability of the Russian Federation, which remains a top priority for its leadership and government.
Next is Europe. And this has not been seen as a joke for quite some time. Europeans have started preparing for this, expecting that Russia could attack as early as around the year 2030.
I think Putin is going to continue testing us in hybrid warfare. We have already seen damage to cables on the bottom of the Baltic Sea and in other places, and he is going to test this again. If we do not respond to this with a united and firm reaction, Putin will definitely continue. He will try to undermine our society from within. Look at how this is already happening in Germany, France, Slovakia, Hungary, and other countries. And a situation could arise as early as this autumn or later, where a Russian brigade crosses the bridge in Narva, Estonia, and declares this is now Russian territory. What will our response be?
And today, we will discuss in detail specifically about Narva, the Estonian city populated by Russians in particular, as well as whether an EU country can fight back and how Estonians are preparing for a possible war with Russia in the context of current events. On May 9th, there is a large parade held in Russia to mark this important. And this is the city of Narva, an Estonian city located on the border with Russia, directly across from Ivangorod. The Russian Federation broadcast the victory parade from Red Square towards Estonia on huge screens. Everything is shown live.
Estonia, we feel your pain. Well done.
The Russian-speaking residents of Estonia are thrilled, but the rest respond to this gesture from Russia in Narva. Directly across from the screen, there is a giant banner reminding everyone that Putin is a war criminal.
At this very spot stands the historic flag tower of Narva Castle. And today, yes, flying from it like a flag is this prominent and striking banner with the message that Putin is a war criminal, just as Hitler was once a war criminal. And on this banner, they are unmistakably and clearly depicted as one and the same.
The concert audience, the residents of Estonia, who it would seem should be condemning the provocations of the Russians, are actually condemning completely different people.
What are they showing us? They show us beautiful things, yes, all this memory, right? So does that mean in response we have to show this kind of thing?
And they also complain that supposedly, they're being mistreated here.
Life has become harder now. We as Russians are often being treated unfairly. People these days have become so mean and unfriendly, sometimes even cold.
Narva and Ivangorod are separated by just a bridge. This very place is considered one of Putin's possible targets. There's hardly any real protection. But there are plenty of residents who, it seems, are just waiting for Russian tanks. The majority of the city's population are ethnic Russians.
Yes, there are more Russians here than Estonians, and they all speak Russian.
The situation has become so tense that Estonia is considering a military base in Narva, right on the border with Russia.
In this way, we will send a clear signal to the city's residents about the presence of the Estonian state. People in Narva will be able to get used to the military being a part of their everyday city life. And in a certain sense, this step will serve as a demonstration that Narva is an integral part of Estonia.
It's a perfectly logical move. The only thing is, the contingent is laughable. Estonia wants to station about 200 to 250 Estonian soldiers and allied units at the military base. In Narva itself, Russians see Putin as nothing less than a dove of peace who would never attack.
If she hadn't been forced, she never would have. Russia, for so many years, for so many millennia, has never attacked first. And Russia will never attack no matter what. Russia will not attack anyone. That's already a 100% guarantee.
Of course, that's a lie. Russians constantly attack first and will do so again when the opportunity arises. As a result, Narva could be next. But is Estonia ready, considering that they have only just now started thinking about a military base on the border with Russia with a force of 200 soldiers? Of course, Estonia is a NATO country, and in theory, the alliance would immediately come to the defense of Estonian territory in the event of an attack. But here, it's also very important to understand Estonia's defense doctrine.
Estonia's defense doctrine is the most unconventional in the region. First of all, the task of the armed forces is to anticipate the moment of a possible attack. That is why all intelligence, surveillance, and monitoring capabilities are focused on the territory of the likely adversary, tracking their movements, logistics, and actions around the clock. The current state of technology and the methods used make it possible to know, by name, the entire personnel of units, to monitor the career progression of officers, to know the composition of their families, to see the soldiers' mess hall menu, and to know the inventory numbers of ammunition stored in warehouses.
In other words, the Estonians are constantly keeping an eye on the Russians. Right now, they are reporting that the Russian Federation is not planning to attack Estonia. But if something like that does happen, the Estonians will respond. How? Not by repelling the attack, but by striking first.
Estonia's defense doctrine does not allow for first losing territory and then recapturing it with NATO forces. Estonia's goal is to prevent such a scenario altogether, because the country does not want war. Estonia does not need it. But if the army's objective is not to lose any territory, that means Estonia would have to strike first.
That sounds surprising, especially if you know the size of the Estonian army. In 2023, the country increased the size of its defense forces. In the event of martial law and mobilization, attention, 43,700 people would take up arms. As for weaponry, for example, aviation, Estonia doesn't have its own aircraft, but its airspace is protected by NATO forces. But they do have a bit of ground equipment. For example, the Estonian land forces have 100 STRF-90s, Swedish infantry fighting vehicles, as well as Finnish and Turkish armored personnel carriers, totaling about 200 units, javelins, and 122mm howitzers, which, by the way, they even managed to supply to Ukraine despite threats from Russia. The arsenal of the Estonian land forces also includes French Caesar self-propelled howitzers and Korean K9 self-propelled howitzers. The cherry on top for the Estonian army would have to be the now well-known HIMARS. There aren't many of them in the Estonian army, but in the event of an attack, they could still rattle some nerves. We're measuring, I can feel it. The tension is real and uncertainty is in the air. What do you think? Will Russia actually attack Estonia? Share your thoughts and opinions in the comments below and let us know what you believe might happen next. And don't forget to like this video if you found it interesting. And be sure to subscribe to our Arsenal channel so you don't miss any of the most interesting content.